started her own ministry. It's Hebrews 12 Ministry. And I posted a couple of her things on our page so you guys can follow her page. Super inspirational. I will let you take over.
Oh, awesome.
Okay?
Hey. Can I use your
Yes.
stand?
Let me move all my stuff up. Oops. Stole my child.
You throw
Yeah.
that.
Well, I'm keeping what a child. I just want that.
Just take the stuff.
That's just
Oh, okay.
okay.
Hi. Hi. This is awesome. I don't have to carry a microphone around, and so then I get both my hands. Okay. Is it okay if I'm a little nervous? Yes. Okay, good. Good. I'll just pretend we're sitting in my living room and we're just talking. Well, I actually familiar with West Point a little bit. Me and my husband live in Gretna now. We just moved from Milligan, but we used to live up by Norfolk in a town called Meadow Grove. Anybody know? 350 people, and so we lived up there for 6 years, and while we were living there, my oldest son is from a previous relationship, and his dad was in Omaha, so West Point was like our halfway meeting spot. So once a month, we'd be over at the old Pizza Hut, like exchanging the kid. I really miss the small town living. Gretna is only like 3,500 people, but you know it's just about to get swallowed up in Omaha. And so, so it's not true country living. Where we were at in Meadow Grove, they had a cattle drive that came down our road. They would move like 300 head of cattle right down our street, and we would sometimes get like a cow in our yard for kids. They just loved it. They thought it was so much fun. So I have 3 super energetic boys. Isn't that parenting language fun? Like when we come up with ways to describe our kids' behavior that is maybe not exactly how we like it to be. Like when I say energetic, you guys know that I mean like crazy, right? When someone says that their kid is like, well, they're going to be they're a natural born leader. Bossy. My one son, I always say like, he just likes to figure out things on his own. Okay, he doesn't listen, and he's stubborn. So my boys, I have 3 boys. They're 6, 8, and 12. It's fun. Like they're getting their own personalities, and you can kind of see like how they're going to be when they get older. And so my youngest, my little guy Madden, me and my husband have kind of known for a while that when he gets older and he's in high school, he's going to be that kid that streaks the football field during the homecoming game. I mean, you just know sometimes, right? Does anybody know who the streaker in here is going to be?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You just know this.
I love dials.
Right? So I haven't always, I'm not actually from Nebraska. I was born 2 hours outside of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. Go Eagles. I always say that now because they won something. I'll own them when they win. But anyways, I moved to Omaha when I was in 3rd grade, and then I lived there between the ages, from 3rd grade to 26, and that's when I got married, and we moved away. So, you know what the awesome thing is about moving when you're 26 to a small town? Nobody knows you. You can start all over. I had made all these mistakes growing up. And it seemed like in Omaha, every time I turned the corner, boom, right there in my face. I mean, we're in a small town. You guys know that. Everybody knows everything about you, right? And so I kind of thought that moving up to this small town where nobody knows me was kind of like God's gift to me. Like, here you are. You can start all over. Be free, right? Well, you know what's not awesome is when God moves you back after 6 years to deal with all your stuff. I mean, I had spent my whole life running from my past. When I was little, I had some sexual abuse happen to me, which kind of started this real unstable insecurity. And so, you know, when you introduce sexual themes to a young child, and there was no counseling, there was no anything after that. So I got into sex really young, into my teen years. And once I got into that, you know, I just started jumping from bad relationship to bad relationship, you know, not knowing, like, why do I have this feeling inside me? Like I had this emptiness, like I just felt like this shell of a person. And when jumping from bad relationship to bad relationship didn't change anything, I then got into drugs and alcohol and this whole downward spiral because I thought, well, if I can't feel it, then I just want to forget it, you know? So I think we have this concept of like acceptable sins. You know, we have these things that are okay to talk about. Like, for example, we come to a group like this and we say, oh my gosh, you know, I've yelled at my kids all week. Like, and we feel like camaraderie with other people because they have the same thing. That's not a risky thing to share, right? They have the same thing. They can give us encouragement. Yeah, I've done that too. Or maybe it's one of those things where it's like, oh, I had one too many glasses of wine last week, and you can kind of joke about it and laugh, and there's camaraderie there. But what about the things that we don't talk about, right? What about the things that we have buried, like really deep down inside, that we're afraid that if we start a conversation about it, people will learn things about us, and then they won't like us, and they'll judge us. I mean, it's very important to feel accepted. So, when I was 14 years old, I had an abortion. When I was 21, I had another one. Now, I can sit up here and I can tell you all the reasons why and the circumstances surrounding it, but it doesn't change it. It doesn't change what I did, and it doesn't change how I feel about it. So now maybe you understand, like, why I thought it was awesome that I could move away and I could just start over, but it's not starting over, right? We take this stuff with us. I was just running. I was just running to another place and another time. But all the while, like, it's with me. And all I can do is think about, you know, how horrible of a person I was. How much I didn't deserve to be free of any of my past sins. I didn't deserve to have friends. I didn't deserve for anybody to really know me. And I certainly didn't deserve these beautiful boys that I had. Is anybody else here dealing with things that you're running from? Now, don't think that because maybe they're not the same thing as my story, that they're any less traumatic or any less hard to overcome. We may not have been down the same road, but a lot of the things that we're dealing with are products of similar things that we've went through. And so, is anybody else dealing here with parenting issues? Like maybe you didn't have the relationship with your mom that you wanted to have. Maybe she wasn't there, or maybe there was just never that closeness, and you have friends and you see their closeness and you're like, oh, I never had that. And now you take it into your parenting and you're scared to death that you're gonna mess up with your kids. Like, you're gonna not measure up. You're not gonna have that relationship with them. Or maybe you have these past betrayals. You were friends with somebody for the longest time and all of a sudden, boom, they just stopped. Or maybe it was a relationship and now you're just left with, what went wrong? There's trust issues with that. Maybe you've spent your whole life being told, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not sporty enough, you're not fit enough, like you're never enough. And we take those into our marriages, and then we look at our husbands and be like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not enough. What if he doesn't love me as much as I love him? What if he is gonna leave me? What if he's gonna cheat on me? And then, thank you. Then we throw in pornography into the whole mix. I grew up in a house that it was okay. You know, it wasn't like a huge, you know, it wasn't a huge deal. We didn't talk about it, but like, you know, there was kind of that undertone. And so we go into our adulthoods, and maybe our husbands look at it. And how do we feel about that? And then we have all these insecurities because of that. So you compound all this through your life, and you get to a place where you're just thinking, I don't know, does God even love me? And if he does love me, I'm sure that I can't be used for anything. So we have all these things in our past, and we let Satan come in and tell us that if we ever shared these things, if we ever talked about it, people aren't going to like us. They're going to judge us. We're going to be on the outside. So when I was in 7th grade, I remember I brought home this one report card. It was less than desirable, let me tell you. And I remember specifically like where I was, and I can't remember like what I did last week, but I can remember this memory in 7th grade. Like it's never left me. So I'm sitting there on my bed, and I had this little white ruffly comforter, and it was a day bed that had those trundles like underneath that popped up. So when your friend came over, boom, like they had a place to stay. And I think I had this huge picture of like all these cats on the wall. I don't know, I love cats growing up. So anyways, but I remember I was sitting there with my dad, and he's looking over my report card. And gosh, the look on his face, and I just remember him saying, I am so disappointed in you. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, like he could have said anything. He could have yelled at me, he could have grounded me, he could have spanked me. I mean, 7th grade, that's a little old for that. But you know, like it could have been anything. But when he said he was disappointed, that I disappointed him, oh, that was crushing. And so here I start thinking like, okay, well, if my earthly dad is disappointed in me for a bad grade, what about my heavenly dad? Like, look at my life. You know, I had messed that up. I could only imagine that he is standing up there in heaven saying, what a mess. What a mess. I am really disappointed in this one. So is God disappointed in us? So the word disappointment, sorry, I still have my gum in. I just like shove it back there. I'm either going to choke on it or it's going to fall out of my mouth. I'm sorry. I'm not a polished person, guys. It's real.
You're doing good.
Yeah. Oh, man. See, fresh breath is that important. Okay, so is God disappointed in us? So the word disappointed is, it means to be surprised and frustrated. So can we surprise God? Like anything that we can do. Like is he surprised? Like, oh my gosh, I didn't see that coming. So I looked some verses up in the Bible, and I came across this one, and it's just so beautiful, and so I want to read it to you. It's Psalms 139, 1 through 4, and 13 through 16. And it says, O Lord, you have searched me, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You are familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you know it completely, O Lord. For you created my innermost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. And the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Oh, it's so good. So when we hear that, like God knows like our beginning and our end. Like he can't be surprised by us. So what about frustrated? Well, frustration is the feeling of being upset or annoyed, especially due to the inability to change or achieve something. Okay, so you're wanting me to believe that the Alpha and the Omega can get annoyed by something that he can't change. Like the guy that named all the stars. Does this like sound like the creator of the universe? I mean, he's the one that sent Jesus down to us. And then Satan thinks that he's going to thwart his plans, and he's like, I had him betrayed, and I had him murdered, and God's like, boom, all in the game plan, Satan. Right? Like, this is, like, there is nothing that God can't change. So, when we go to make a relationship with our Heavenly Father, we take what we've experienced in our earthly relationships with our earthly dads, right? And we use it as kind of a template, and we try to, like, that's how we see through that template of how earthly father-daughter relationships go. Okay, but we forget that His love is perfect. We didn't have to do anything to earn it except just to exist. And so it's a really hard thing to grasp because we are very performance-based, right? And even though we're not going to go and disown our kids when they mess up, there is like an emotional reaction to it, right? And so I started thinking about the way God is with children. Like, we hear it all the time in the Bible. He wants us to be like kids. He wants us to come to Him like kids. So what's the big deal about us being like kids? A lot of the time, what I've read in the notes in the Bibles and stuff, it's because like they're so innocent and they're so trusting, right? They'll believe anything we say. Well, until they're like, I don't know, 8 or 9, and then they believe nothing that we say. All right, I've got a tween. Trust me, this is like a really fun time in life. Does anybody else have any kids in? Yeah. So you know. Yeah. I think they're just asking for my advice so they can hear themselves talk more. But anyway, so recently I was reading this book called The Ragamuffin Gospel. It's by Brennan Manning. And while he says there's truth to the whole innocence and trusting and thing like that, his take on it is that we have a whole people group, these kids, that are completely incapable of earning their salvation. Like, they haven't done anything to earn it, but time and time again, Jesus calls them to Him. He wants them to come to Him, and He uses them as examples to telling the adults how to act. So this is how I see it in real world terms, okay? So does anybody here have kids that are crazy about Pokemon? Has anybody heard of this Pokemon? Okay, so my kids it's like these trading cards, and I think it's subtraction with tricks in it. I don't know. Like, it's the craziest thing. And I don't know what happened to baseball cards, but now we've got these little, anyways. So my kids are crazy about this thing. And if I went to my 6-year-old and I said, here's this rare Pokemon Evolve GX, whatever it is that they are, and I gave it to him, he's not going to say, whoa, Mom, I don't deserve that. I don't deserve that. Quick, let me go scrub the bathroom for you. Like, kids don't do that, okay? If your kid does that, I want to adopt them. But kids don't do that. What do? Like, with this new toy or with this card or whatever, like, they get so excited, and you see the joy in their eyes, and they take it without question, right? This is how God wants us to see His gift of grace. He's saying, here I am. I have forgiven all of it. All you have to do is believe it. All you have to do is accept me. The truth isn't any less true just because we have issues believing in it. All right? The gospel is the gospel. Okay? So, so the gospel is the gospel, whether we choose to believe it or not. When He says that He took all of this to the grave, believe it, ladies, because He hung on the cross and died for us. Okay, so I have this little sidebar Bible talk I want to get into here. So as I was preparing for this, God just kept kind of like, downloading these different things to me. One thing that I feel like He wanted me to talk about that, I don't know who needs to hear this, but when God says, hey, would you just go ahead and mention this, like, you just go ahead and mention it. So since we're talking about guilt and shame and that kind of thing, is there anybody in here who has ever felt guilty about not reading this guy more? Anybody? Right? Okay. I need you to hear me out, ladies. This here, this is not Satan's weapon. Okay? This is our weapon. This is where we get to know our Creator. This is where we get our strength. This is where we get to know our healer and get encouragement. Okay, we cannot let Satan come in and be like, oh, you didn't read your Bible today? Ooh, that's bad. Like, this was never something that God said, okay, check in the box, make sure you read your Bible. Like he didn't give this to us that we could have a task. He gave this to us so we could know him. Okay? There have been weeks where I haven't been in my Bible, and that's okay. But you know what? Like, I can feel it. I can feel it in my soul when I haven't been in there, and he tells me things in there all the time. I mean, this is our love letter. So I just wanted to bring this to you and let you know, like, tell Satan, hands off, buddy. Like, this is mine. This is not yours. So whoever that was for, you're welcome. Okay, we cannot punish ourselves with this thinking that we can redeem ourselves. This is a dangerous game. Okay? If I hate myself enough, if I hate the things I did, if I hate the things I thought, then maybe one day God will forgive me and it'll be okay. One day. Right? That is us playing God. That is us putting the task of earning forgiveness on ourselves. And I have done that for years. And you can stand, or I'm standing, you guys could sit there and tell me, well, you don't know what I've done. I've said this so many times, but let me point out, ladies, it doesn't matter what we did, right? All that matters is what he did. So there's a story in the Bible about this girl, and she doesn't have a name. There's everybody notice there's a few of these women in the Bible that have these significant stories that don't have names? And I kind of think that they don't have names because I think God wanted us to see that they signify a little bit in all of us. And so when I was, I actually wasn't even reading about this girl at all. I was reading something else, and in my Bible there's a little footnote, and it mentions this story. It's in Luke 7. And I'd heard it before, but I never really read it. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, I gotta read this. I gotta see what's going on with this gal. And so Jesus was eating with a Pharisee, and he was in his home, and there was this gal there, and she wasn't invited. It says she wasn't working there. It wasn't like she was a maid or something, but she knew that Jesus was going to be there. And so she shows up. Now it says in the Bible that this was a sinful woman. There's been a lot of back and forth about what this woman's sin was. And some people say that she was a prostitute. But I just want to say this part, like, really gets at me. Because do you think that no matter what her sin was, that it was any less great in her eyes? Like, who are we to put something on somebody that we don't know? And what does it matter? Like, I may not know the name of your sin, but does it make it any less heavy on you? So here she was, and she just comes in, she doesn't say a word, and she sits down at Jesus' feet, and she just starts weeping. Okay, this is not like 1 tear, 2 tear. This is like ugly crying. Okay, weeping is like that, weeping, and like, you know, but she's there and she's at his feet, like, because she knew who he was. She knew who he was to her, like, she got it. She got who this was, and that he had taken her shame and her guilt, all that stuff, and it was gone. I was this girl, and I was in this place, and Jesus came to me, and I didn't even have to say anything. I didn't even have to, say a word, because he knew. And he took that from me, and he said, oh girl, you don't have to hide anymore. You don't have to run. And he took that piece of my heart that was so broken for what I had done, and I was completely undone, washed over by the emotion. And I was just like her, weeping at his feet. A few years ago, my husband and I and our family, and his sister and her family, and his mom and her sister and all their families, we took this trip down to Pensacola, Florida. And we were staying, we split up this big house. We all stayed in a different room or whatever, and it's one street from the beach. And something that our whole family loves to do is to play sand volleyball together. So just so you know, I'm all-time setter. Just realized a couple of years ago that my hopes for an Olympic try in the sand volleyball is not going to come to fruition. It's okay. But anyway, so we would go down to the beach every day and we would play sand volleyball and we'd play and play and play. It was so much fun. The kids would be on the beach, and during this time, you know, we were playing. The beach was really nice, but for some reason, I managed to find this stupid stick that was sticking up like just right under the sand, and I just stepped on it and put this puncture wound into my foot. And I'm like, whew, that sucks, but you know, we're gonna keep playing. And about an hour later, I did the same thing. It was a different stick because I got rid of that other one, and with the other foot. So I've got 2 puncture wounds in the bottom of my feet in the sand. And you know, a smart person would have bandaged them up and you know, sat out for a little bit. I have never once claimed to be smart. So I just continued to play, grinding sand and dirt into my feet for about 3 more days. And so by the end of this trip, I'm in just this horrific pain. My feet are swollen, I'm miserable. But on the last day of a trip, whenever we go on a trip, I love going to watch the sunrise. It's just my thing. Like, I just feel peace. Nobody else is up because all my family is sleeping in, but I get up, and especially like we're at the beach, right? Who doesn't want to see the sun come up or the sunset on the beach? So I got up, and I kind of made this hobbling movement that got me forward. And I got down to the beach. You know, there's a boardwalk when you get there, and then you're like at the top of the sand by the dunes, and you have to go down. So I might have blacked out or army crawled or something, but I made it down there. So I get down to the beach, and I'm sitting there just as the sun is starting to slip up from the horizon. And the colors, oh my gosh, they're like these reds and pinks and oranges, and the ocean underneath are these blues and greens, and it's swirling. And then as it gets higher, like, you know those sunbeams that start shooting out, those bright, and like you can see the individual beam, those were shooting out, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, this is amazing. I was seriously ready for the trumpets to sound, clouds to part, Jesus is coming down to pick me up off the beach, because honestly, I didn't know if I could get back to the house at that point anyway, so might as well take me now. But as I'm watching this, I start thinking, like, you know, what makes this sunrise so beautiful? Like, what is it that creates all these colors? Because, you know, so anyways, I studied meteorology in college, and so I kind of have a little in. So when the sun is coming up, the way that the light is hitting the atmosphere at the angle creates these colors. It hits the particles, and it creates these colors. But we know that some sunrises and sunsets are more magnificent than others. Like, they just have more colors to it. So why? Like, what is it about that? Well, there's other things in the air that are more plentiful in some areas than that. So there's dust and there's pollution. Okay, so I started thinking about this. I'm like, dust. God made us from the dust of the earth, right? So here we are. We're the dust in the sky. And pollution, what is the pollution? Pollution is all the bad stuff that the world puts out, right? It's all the junk, it's all the bad stuff. So here we are, and we have the dust and the pollution up in the sky, but do you know what happens when the light from the sun hits it? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And we're not the only ones that can see it. Like, that can be seen for miles and miles. And so there's one more story that I wanted to tell out of the Bible, and of course it's another woman that doesn't have a name. This is one of my favorite stories, and I could go into a lot of it. It's the woman at the well, and I could dissect this for like an hour because I just love it so much, but I don't think your child care workers are going to stay. They're leaving at 11, so I'm just going to stick to the ending part, but I just want to give you a little bit of background. So the well back then in Jesus' time was kind of like that social gathering place, okay, kind of like the water cooler at a business or whatever, or coffee, right? A coffee pot is like the social gathering place. So, so the women would come out, they would come together, and they would just kind of gab and talk and whatever. And the Jewish women and the men and the women would come out at separate times because Jewish women were not allowed to speak to men in public back then. So this particular woman that came out, like she was a Samaritan, and not just Samaritan, but she was like an outcast. She was kind of like looked down upon, and so she came out by herself. And she gets there, and Jesus is there, or he comes upon her at the well, and the disciples are going to the town to get some food or supplies or whatever, and they have this exchange, right? Have this conversation. And she has this light bulb moment where she realizes, like, who he is. And she goes running back to town and to tell the people, and she starts telling them, she said, you've got to come meet the man who told me everything I ever did. Like, she left her water jug and everything. She went running back to town. She wasn't afraid that she was the outcast. She wasn't afraid of what she had done and how people had saw her. She was so excited, and she had to go and let everybody know, come meet the man who told me everything I ever did. And do you know what happened? In John 3:39 says, many of the Samaritans from that town believed that day because of that woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. Ladies, if I never told anyone my story, yeah, I'd be protected. I wouldn't have to worry about people judging me or not liking me. I certainly wouldn't have to worry about what a group of moms is going to think of me after I leave. But he's taking something bad from the choices that I made and turning it into something good. And if I never said anything, then it was all for nothing. So just like that sunrise is meant for more people than just us to see, ladies, your stories are meant for more people to experience. That is the beauty that God will bring out of it. And I tell you what, we're the ones that get to tell it, right? We're the only ones that know our story, and we're the ones that get to tell it. We get to tell of God's love and God's grace and his mercy. And let me ask you this, ladies, if we don't, who will? So Ashley's going to play a song that I picked out, and as she's doing this, I'd really like you to just let the words of this kind of wash over you and think about it. And if you're a journaler, take out some paper. Sometimes I'll just start writing, and God will just get a hold of me, and I'll just start writing things, and it's so exciting to hear what he's saying to my heart. But also, ladies, I want to encourage you that if you need to shed some tears because you're realizing, like, oh my gosh, God, you took this. You're taking this from me. This is, I don't know you ladies very well, but from what Ashley says, like, this is a safe place, okay? And I want you to know you're not here by accident. None of you came this morning just to be like, oh, I'm going to take a left. And no, look, I'm in a church. I'm going to go in. Like, God designed you to be here this morning. He designed me to be here this morning. So do not let the fear of what somebody else might think of you, if you have to get down on your knees and weep, or put your head down and meditate on it. And the last thing that I just want to say is that my story, the things that I share with you today, has taken a long time to be able to talk about. There was a time that I didn't think I ever would, like truly. Everybody's journey is different. You're all at different stages. I don't want anyone to think that they have to be here and just bear all, because we're not in the same place. And it may not be safe for you, because there are some things that we've been through that are more traumatic. You have to respect your own journey and don't rush it, because you don't want to open something up that may cause you to regret talking about it later. So I would encourage you that if you can't share here within a group, get with one friend, like one person, or even just get with God and say it out loud. Like Ashley, when she was saying it out loud, there's power in that. You know, the captive has to name their captivity in order to be free. So I want to pray for you ladies real quick, and then Laura put on the music. So, dear Heavenly Father, I just thank you so much for this time here and these women. I thank you for their hearts, and I just pray, God, that you start a stirring in them, that they can start releasing some of the things that they've been holding back, and that you let them know that you are not disappointed in them, God. There is nothing that they can do that disappoints you, and that you just love them and you cherish them, and that you will bring good out of things that have seemingly been bad, and to just start moving forward. And I just pray that you're with each and every one of these ladies, and that there is a protective covering over them as they move forward, and their families, Lord. I just pray that you're with them, and that they can feel you, and that they know that you're real, God, and that your love is real for them. I just thank you so much for being able to share this story. In your name we pray, amen.